to our Land Bulletin series. I'm Haley Mirr, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Development here at Mirr Ranch Group. This is the Land Bulletin, where every other week we discuss the ranch and sporting property market, buying and selling advice, the latest best stewardship practices, as well as topics currently impacting landowners. Mirr Ranch Group is a full-service ranch real estate brokerage and consulting company focusing on legacy ranches and sporting properties around the West. One of the most anticipated annual events in the West just took place in Denver, the National Western Stock Show. The National Western was established in 1906 and has become a staple in the ranching community for livestock auctions, youth education, exhibitions, Western art, and of course, the rodeo. And helping me out today and explaining the importance of the National Western to ranching and Western lifestyle is the president and CEO of the National Western Stock Show Complex, Mr. Paul Andrews. Welcome, Paul.
Well, thank you for having me, Haley.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. We were just chatting before we even got on here, and you gave this great tour of the grounds and gave me a lot of history that I didn't know already. So to be able to talk to you about even more of the history and kind of where you guys are at now is a privilege, and I'm excited to learn more.
Well, great. I'm excited to hopefully put some knowledge out there that you and your listeners don't know.
Awesome. And before we kind of get into it, I'd love to know kind of what brought you to the National Western, kind of what's your history and why are you here today?
You bet. I grew up here in Colorado, grew up in Lakewood, and my grandfather owned a ranch in Golden that was a polled Hereford ranch that I grew up on working in the summers. So probably from about, I'm going to say 3rd grade to 12th grade, I was out on that ranch in Golden. Paul Patridge was my grandfather. He was a director of the National Western Stock Show on the board. And he won a lot of ribbons here from about 1928 forward, but never won the grand prize. So he never got a grand or reserve champion, but we were 3rd a couple of years. So really, growing up in the agricultural environment, I lived in Lakewood. I grew up and went to Alameda High School in Lakewood. But working on that ranch really got in my blood. And then after I graduated college from the University of Wyoming in 1987 with a marketing degree and a minor in finance, I actually went to work for the Denver Nuggets. And we ended up being the Denver Nuggets and Colorado Avalanche. And I worked there for 20 years from 1990 to 2010. And then the chairman of the board, Jerry McMorris, came into my office at the Pepsi Center and said, you know, you got a big agricultural background, and Pat Grant is stepping aside from the president of Stock Show. Would you be interested in that at all? And at the time, I was the head of business operations for Kroenke Sports Enterprises. And I said, you know what? There's nothing like the Stock Show, and it's in my blood, and I'd like to continue conversations. And one thing led to another, and Jerry McMorris and Pat Grant ended up hiring me in 2010.
That's awesome. Well, it's really cool to see, since you have come into, being the president and everything, where you guys have been. And I'm excited to kind of have the listeners hear about what you guys are working on. But before we get into that, I would love to kind of discuss how the National Western Stock Show came to be. I know, it's been around for over 100 years, and a lot of people don't realize that. So just kind of going through the history and why Denver was chosen, all of those things. So I guess we'll start with kind of, when was the first stock show?
Yeah, the first stock show occurred in 1906, late January, and right here on the banks of the South Platte River in the exact same location that we're in today. And the founders, Elias Ammons, now again, some people pronounce his first name Elias, so I'm not sure whether he's Elias or Elias Ammons, but one of the two, he and a group of really downtown business leaders and packing house individuals and so forth thought, Denver, Colorado, right here along the rail spur might be a great place to start a National Western Stock Show, or start a stock show. They hadn't branded it quite yet. And that was because all the animals could come from Chicago on that rail line and stop here and unload in the yards. The yards were huge. The yards were acres and acres and acres. You couldn't even see to the end of them. So there was a lot of processing plants here. So anyway, they all thought this would be a good idea. They erected the biggest tent that the West had ever erected in 1906 and started a livestock show right then. 351 animals were shown that year. And the grand champion steer, for all you CSU alumni, the grand champion steer was shown by Colorado State University, which at the time was Colorado A&M. So that's really how we got started. Just again, everyone from business leaders downtown to the mayor to important packers and producers in the area thought Denver would be a great place to start. And January was chosen because we wanted to be the national Western Stock Show, meaning we wanted to allow entries from all over the United States and other countries eventually. And to do that, you had to do that in a month when the ranchers wouldn't be calving. And predominantly across the entire United States and really the rest of the world, they're not calving in January. And so even though it's cold in January, that's why our founders picked January, was because ranchers can attend and they wouldn't be calving.
I've always wondered that. So I'm so glad that you cleared that up, why January was chosen. Makes
Right.
a lot of sense. And you mentioned CSU. And I think one of the most beautiful things about the National Western is you guys were really formed underneath this idea of education, and being a nonprofit and kind of creating that. When did that kind of start? Was that from the beginning, or did that kind of develop to what it is today?
You bet. Yeah. From the very beginning, when our 501c3 was organized, it was organized on education, and specifically agricultural education. And then as we continued on with our programs and our education programs and the competition of our shows, we never had rodeo until 1931. A lot of people think, boy, rodeo must have started right away in 1906, but our board did not want to do the rodeo. They wanted to have a livestock show. And then the next year they started the horse show in 1907. And but it was all about education, right? Education especially of the urban versus rural individuals. And at that time, most everybody was rural, but
Right.
the importance of educating people where their food came from became really a staple of the National Western Stock Show, to educate the urban individuals that this food doesn't just show up in your grocery store. And so Stock Show, very proud of that baseline foundation as a 501c3, and every program we've created, we try to have an education spin to it, even if it's just for entertainment, as a lot of the Stock Show things today have evolved into really entertainment that people want to see.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great segue compared to its founding, which was very much related to the stocks, and, the location made a lot of sense. What are the advancements that have happened with the National Western when it comes to programming and what you guys provide? Not just, maybe within the 2 to 3 week time span, but like throughout the year.
Yeah, so it would take you and me an entire day to go through the entirety of the National Western Stock Show. I can tell you I've been president and CEO for 14 years, and I have not seen every single thing that we do in our 16 days of stock show. That's how many things are going on the grounds simultaneously that I could just never hit. In fact, year one, when I was here as president, I wandered across this exhibition that was going on in the Beef Palace, which is our junior auction, and it was a Colorado Fiddle Championship. I'm like, what is this? The Fiddle Championships are here. And so there was so much to experience. The programming evolved well over time. Obviously, the livestock show is the center of what we do. We're known as the Super Bowl of livestock shows, and it really is because of that founding back in 1906 and moving forward. And, the fact that a carload and pin show started here way in the early days, because as the train moved along the track, the carload show started because a carload could come out of there and be shown in a pen. And that carload was 10 to 12 animals. And so the carload show began at the stock show because of that. Same with the pins. Pins are 3 to 5 animals. And we still do all those shows today. So, but we evolved over time into rodeo in 1931, became a really big deal. The horse shows were going on almost since day one. But rodeo became a big deal. And then along the way, once the rodeo started, we started things like the Catch a Calf program, where youth are catching an animal at our rodeo, and then they're raising them all year that year, and feeding them out and bringing them to compete at the next year's stock show. Just an incredible educational program. And then all of a sudden, a trade show started up, and all the vendors started coming here to sell everything from boots and hats and saddles and all that. We got 800 trade show booth spaces now. Uh, it's just unbelievable to think about the amount of shopping you can do here at the same time. And so all these things evolved over time, but the centerpiece of the National Western Stock Show is our livestock show and our education and keeping the food chain healthy across America, and really the rest of the world, because leading genetics is found out at the National Western Stock Show, and those best practices are shared here by our producers that are in the stockyards and on the hill here showing their animals. And that's really important to the food chain, that we continue this and keep that part going, in addition to the great entertainment that you get, whether it's a rodeo or horse show that you might see, or just you want to come down here and shop and see the animals and put your kid in the petting zoo. I mean, all that stuff came forward over the last 118 years at various points in our history.
That's amazing. And how has, because I have a lot of friends who have moved to Denver, and I've seen a fluctuation in kind of attendance, kind of when I was a kid to now. So like from 1906 to now, what is the attendance like? How many people are you seeing at this thing every year? Because I feel like this year, especially, I felt like there was, everyone and their mom was going, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, so obviously that first year back in 1906, we drew about 15,000 people is the estimate, right? They couldn't have the sophistication technology-wise that we have today to really measure how many people are here. But over time, the show went from just a 4-day show, 5-day show. All of a sudden, you went to a 10-day show, and Willard Sims, a great former general manager here, wrote a book, 10 Days Every January, that we read religiously here. And then we grew to 16 days, and that's where we're at today. And I can tell you, as we look to the future, this show could be a 22 or 23-day show, because I have provided that flexibility in a 100-year agreement that I signed with the city to do the show here. But really, the attendance of the show now is astronomical, as you've pointed out, Haley. You came here. It's crowded a lot of the time, and it's great and it's fun. But we are consistently around the 700,000 attendee mark in our 16 days of stock show now. And I tell you, we were trending to be about 715 this year. We ended up at 671, but we had a 5-day snap that was the coldest 5-day snap over the MLK weekend in the history of the National Western Stock Show. And, people don't like to walk around the stockyards when it's -10. No. And so we did lose a little bit of attendance there. But now, we're consistently around 700,000, 700 plus. Our economic impact for the state of Colorado was just measured. That was just 2 months ago. They sent the release out. $171 million worth of economic impact for the state of Colorado from the National Western Stock Show alone. And we're very proud of that, because that's a part of what we can give back to this great state of Colorado that we're in here. So, but besides Stock Show, we do, even though we're the owners of Stock Show and we own Rodeo All-Star Weekend, which we do also in October now, I've got about 120 other events at the complex throughout the year from February to December that are also driving revenue to help our nonprofit and keep my staff busy. I carry about 100 people a year, year round. And during Stock Show, I carry about 1,100 people on payroll. But we go back to about 100 people now. And we just host these events. We don't own them. So we rent out the facilities and do that the rest of the year. And we do lots of horse shows the rest of the year. We'll do probably 20 to 30 horse shows this year. And as the new buildings come on, we'll even get more aggressive on all of that business.
That's amazing. Because I was going to say, as you guys continue to grow and you bring all this money to Denver, and you mentioned kind of the contract that you have with the city, what are you guys doing in order to kind of increase capacity and continue kind of this growth with the city of Denver and being this place where people can have events. I know you guys are working on a big campaign to make a lot of that happen.
Yeah, so our campus, is going to go from 90 acres that it is today to 250 acres.
Wow.
And that's going to be a major change for people, which we're going to have to solve some things within that change. One is going to be parking, because parking has been a thorn in the side of the National Western Stock Show, I dare say, since 1906, but I'm probably right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to park here, and we just don't have enough spaces for the amount of volume of people that are attending our show. But as the new facilities come online and we become the National Western Center, you have a new stockyards already, which has power and water to every pin. You have 6 power outlets in every pin in our yards out there. That is almost going to be impossible to replicate. So that's a competitive advantage across the world that we will own here in Denver, Colorado. Our stockyards are very, very popular, and they're full. The Sue Ann Schutz Rogers Livestock Center is under construction now. 3,000 seat arena, 190,000 square foot of barns. It's going to change where the yards and the hill will be married together now for the first time ever, and the stockmen out there will really, really appreciate the fact that their animals can move from the hill to the yards in just feet rather than half a mile. So that's going to be ready by May, or not May of 25, but it'll be ready by about November of 25. And we also have coming out of the ground soon will be our new legacy building. We started construction on it here February 1st. And the legacy building is also slated to be done by November 1st of 2025. So you'll have a lot of the pieces done there, and the equestrian center will start that in about a year and a half from now. So maybe mid-25, the equestrian center starts coming out of the ground also. And then you'll be done with phases 1 and 2, and you'll just be waiting on that replacement arena for the rodeo. The multi-purpose arena that you need to replace the Denver Coliseum. The Coliseum has been great, and it was built in 1952, and I dare say there's maybe no other building that I'm aware of that has been functioning as a building since 1952 and still holding as big a show as we have here in it. So I think it has served its useful life, and we do need to get not only a new rodeo arena, but a multi-purpose venue that the city can drive economic impact on all year. And I'm excited about that coming in, as well as a new expo hall. So those things are in the future, Haley, and we're very excited about at least completing this initial part in the coming 2 years. And then we're going to start addressing that new rodeo arena very quickly after.
I mean, it's so important to have a place like this where people from all over can gather, and to have a space where, you not only can gather there, but feel comfortable there, can have educational events, have these things that people can attend. I'm super excited just to see where this is headed. And that kind of brings up another point that I'd love to talk about. And one of the things I mentioned earlier that I love about the National Western, beyond the impact that this has on the city that I love, this is having a huge impact on education and kids and scholarships, not just in Colorado, but across the West. And that's what I hold dear, and why I'm so connected to the Young Guns and Coors Western. But I'd love to go through some of the National Western Scholarship Trust and what you all are doing to provide funding mechanisms for these kids who want to get into ag.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because when I resigned from Kroenke Sports, it was the very first question everyone asked me. How could you possibly resign from the Nuggets and the Avalanche and the Pepsi Center and all the things Kroenke Sports is doing that you're the head of business operations of, to come to you're going from a $300 million a year at the time operation to a $13 million a year operation that's a nonprofit. Why would you do that? Well, my one answer was the stock show actually makes a difference in people's lives. And the Scholarship Trust was one of those main reasons, Haley. So the Scholarship Trust right now has grown to the point of being able to support 140 students right now that are going to school in the field of agriculture and rural medicine. So the scholarships range from $2,500 all the way up to $15,000. And of the 140, 120 of them are in a program that benefits Colorado and Wyoming, okay? And that is the National Western Scholarship Trust. So 120 of those students, predominantly at CSU. CSU has 50 of those students. University of Wyoming has about 24, and they're the next biggest. And then a lot of Colorado schools have 4 here, 4 there, and so forth. CU and some of their programs have 10 to 15, especially on the medical side. So anyway, that trust is giving out right now $550,000 a year in scholarship money. And the corpus of that has grown because of the events that we hold at Stock Show that fund that trust. The corpus has grown to a little more than $15 million right now. So we'll be able to sustain and keep that going. And the more and more people that keep coming to Stock Show, and the more and more that support our events that fund that trust, which are the Coors Western Art Show, the Junior Livestock Auction, the Citizen of the West Dinner, and the annual Boots and Business Luncheon that we do at the Chamber, those funds, those net funds, are going to support those scholarship students. And so I'm very, very pleased with that. And then the other 20, so 120 of the 140 are the ones I talked about. And the other 20, we created a Denver scholarship program. And that was for inner city Denver kids that want to understand agriculture. They've had no exposure to it. We want them to apply to us through the Denver Scholarship Program. And as long as they'll go into the field of agriculture, they qualify to be part of our program. So right now we're supporting about 140 kids. And I think as Stock Show grows over time here, we can grow that to hundreds more. And we're very excited about doing that as well.
That's incredible. And can you give kind of examples just so people who are listening who might not know what necessarily a scholarship in the ag field, what that goes towards? What are some of these kids studying? What are they trying to accomplish when they graduate school?
You bet. We have a whole bunch of vet med students that are becoming, veterinarians to then go practice in rural America, because rural America does not have a lot of the great services that a big city like Denver can have, right? Because they don't have as much massive population. So rural America needs more vets. They need more medical services. So we're supporting scholarships for students in the medical field that will then go serve in a rural community to help that rural community have the same high quality of medical services provided that you have in a big city. So equine, bovine, could be pharmaceuticals that are supporting the field of agriculture, farming, ranching. Any of those degrees will qualify for our scholarship trust. And most of the students, we have, CSU is a great example. We're giving away almost 50 a year up there, and they have about 250 to 400 students apply for those every year. So we're hoping we can grow to the point where we can support all those kids at some point. It'd be great to just be at a point where everybody that applied for the scholarship that qualified could get something. And I'm hoping, as I knock on wood here, that we can get there someday. So a lot of different careers people can go into as long as they're in the field of agriculture.
I love that. I mean, it's just incredible, and it's you can see where the money is going. You can meet the kids. It's really impactful. And another one of my favorite things about the Stock Show, and it's again about education and helping kids in kind of the agricultural communities, is the Junior Livestock Auction. It's a little bit different than the National Western Scholarship Trust, but it's one of my favorite events every year. And I'd love to know a little bit more about that one too, just in terms of how it helps kids.
You bet. So the Junior Livestock Auction. So once you're at the National Western Stock Show and you win a class, okay, your weight class, your breed, that sort of thing, you kind of come through the system and you get either chosen as a grand or reserve champion, whether your species is cattle, being a steer of some sort, or you could be a goat. You could have, hogs and so forth. So anyway, we take the best of the best, and we usually auction 96 animals. This last year we did 98, but we always do at least 96 animals in the junior livestock auction. And so the kids that are showing those animals have raised those animals. They've taken care of those animals. It taught them responsibility. And whether they end up being a farmer or a rancher all their life or not, they know that getting up early, being to work on time, and getting it done is going to be required out in the real world. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And they learned that from, I've got this animal that has to be cared for. Okay. So whether it was a steer, which obviously most of them are that species, a steer that got fed and, pampered and blow dried and fit out exactly right and won the grand or reserve champion. Then they go to the junior livestock auction. We always have about 500 excited people there. And I can't tell you how that warms my heart to see the great community of people that come to rally behind these young students that have raised these animals. You got to be 18 years or younger. You age out right at 18. And so these are truly youth that have are still in high school, and they just raised this animal. And so now they're in front of these 500 people that are bidding on their animal, and they just can't even believe it, right? I mean, they're from all parts of the country. I think we had, 28 or 30 states in the junior livestock auction this year alone. And obviously Colorado did real well this year too. So anyway, they get upwards of 75% of the sale on that animal. So those that sell for $100,000, and several did. One sold for 185. The grand champion steer was 185 this year to Ames Construction, and they have been a great supporter all my tenure. So the kid gets 75% of that, and then the trust, after there's some processing fees and so forth, because I don't want to shock your crew, but the food chain gets healthy from that junior livestock auction, guys. We are all about the food chain here. So we raise that animal. That animal's going to go into the food chain after they leave the grounds. And it's going to be feeding America out there, okay, whether it's bacon or a steak on your plate. So anyway, the kids get the majority of that money, and then the trust gets a big percentage of what's remaining.
That's amazing. I know, and like you said, there's a ton of different things that are happening at the stock show. I just wanted to bring light to that, because when it comes to education and kids, like, that's my favorite by far, where you're actually seeing the funds and seeing people get excited. And Paul, I know you've been here for a while now at the stock show. What do you foresee the stock show holding? What are you the most excited about beyond the campus and all of those different things that are going on?
Well, I think the stock show really is going to evolve into this behemoth event that the whole world will converge on here ultimately, in a place known as the National Western Center that celebrates agriculture and preserves our Western heritage year round, not just during the National Western Stock Show. But the stock show itself, I'll be the first one to predict that even though today we're doing about 700,000, when this campus gets fully built out, after the replacement for the Denver Coliseum gets done, those sort of things, I'm pretty confident this National Western Stock Show is going to go well over 1 million people in the 16 days. Now, if we grow to 22 or 23 days, that million is going to be certain, in my opinion, because we'll be able to program other things in there. But that'll be for a future board to decide, and future leadership here at Stock Show. But I think the ground has been set for a sustainable business model for the National Western Stock Show with these new buildings, and a sustainable business model year round for the campus that frankly has been hard to do in the current campus we're in. So I'm very, very excited about really changing the dynamics of both the National Western Stock Show and with our partners, Colorado State University, the City of Denver, and the National Western Center Authority. This whole campus is going to change over the next decade into something I think we can all really be proud of, showing both the history of Stock Show celebrating the National Western Stock Show every January, and then being a place you can come to. If it's June and you live in Germany and you Google, I want to go to some place that can provide a Western experience in June, we're going to be the first thing that comes up. Okay. And we want you on site. We're going to teach you history. CSU is going to teach you research on, animals and food and water. And the stock show is going to be in our new legacy building, be able to tell you the story of the West in that building. And you're going to be very educated as a person coming from Germany to learn about what is this Western way of life.
I love that. And the National Western is doing so much to protect the Western heritage and culture. And I've always felt that way, but even more so now when, you see how big you guys are getting and how it's going to be this year-round thing, because the city of Denver, as important and amazing it is that it is growing, sometimes it loses a sense of self and, where we come from and, how important this facility is and the events that it puts on, all of that is. So it's just amazing to see kind of where that is headed. And, the point of the Land Bulletin is really to educate people on the land in the West and stewardship and what that means. And it's really amazing because National Western is doing the same at a much larger level, I must say, but we do what we can. And for those listening, what is the best way they can get involved, Paul? Like if they want to get involved in the National Western, if they hear about the trust and they find, that's something that speaks to me, how can people who are listening get involved in what you guys do?
You bet. There's a few ways. Obviously, if you're really passionate about what we are and what we represent, we'd encourage you to consider becoming a member of the association. And you can find that information online at nationalwestern.com, just under our membership tab. And it'll tell you a little bit about, we started memberships back in 1906. And back then it was $50 for a lifetime membership, right? Yeah. It's a little more expensive than that now, but it is a lifetime fee. And the money goes into our nonprofit to support the education programs that I've been talking about today. So really nationalwestern.com, find out about membership. That's certainly one way. Another way is certainly to come support us through the events that we do during stock show. That money, goes to support, whether you're buying rodeo tickets or you're buying our horse show tickets or you're coming to see the livestock show or you're putting your kids in the petting farm and you've just bought a grounds admission ticket. That money is critical to us to keep this going and have a sustainable business model. And the staff and I promise that we're trying to give you the best experience you possibly can have here while you're on site. And we hope it's as fun as we think it is when you're here, because we really try to provide a doorway to doorway experience when you exit your car or exit one of our shuttle buses that run every 10 minutes from Coors Field. And we put you right at the front door. We're really trying to provide you the ultimate experience in Western heritage as you're enjoying yourself here at the National Western Stock Show. So those are just a couple of ways. Certainly you can contribute directly to our scholarship trust also if you felt passionate about really wanting to support those 140 kids. And that's also found at nationalwestern.com. So lots of great stuff on our website for those of you that might be interested in getting a little more involved with this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for just kind of giving a little more insight into the importance of the stock show, where it's come from and where it's headed. Like I said, I have a big affinity for what you guys are doing. And I can also say that your staff is some of the best. Shout outs to Grace and Kate and all those guys over at the stock show. You guys have a really good team. So I appreciate you taking the time today.
Well, thank you, Haley. And put me down as a big fan of the Mirr Ranch group also. We love you guys, and we know what you stand for out there, and you live by the code of the West, and we love that a lot.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paul, for your kind words. And thank you to everyone who's listening for joining us today on the Land Bulletin. Once again, I'd like to thank President and CEO of the National Western, Paul Andrews, for coming on today. Even though this year's stock show has come to an end, be sure to mark January 11th through the 26th off in your calendar for the 119th National Western Stock Show. 119, that's pretty amazing. Also, if you would like To look further into the National Western Stock Show, please visit their website at nationalwestern.com. And to learn more about the ranch real estate market or our ranch marketing process, please be sure to subscribe to our newsletter on our website at mirranchgroup.com or give us a call at 303-623-4545. Thanks so much. See you next time.